It's here! The Google Pixel 4 is finally here, the most leaked Android smartphone in history. I finally have one in the studio and I can't wait to put it through spaces, especially since it costs $800 or starts at $800, which is a lot of money. So definitely stay tuned for my full long-term review of this device and of course the 4XL as well. But in this video, I'm going to be comparing the Pixel 4 to its predecessor, the Pixel 3, and see what are the changes, what are some of the features that Google has added to the Pixel 4, some features they've taken away from the Pixel 3, which is true. So sit back and enjoy this little comparison. Now, I do want to mention that I've extensively used the Pixel 3 last year, and I've had a lot of concerns with this device, but I'll definitely talk about those as I'm talking through this comparison. So yeah, let's get started. But first, a quick message from our sponsor.
AOC's warranty just respawned that covers 4 years general warranty for any defects, including a one-time accidental warranty replacement of AGAN monitors because sometimes things happen, so you can enjoy a super smooth and responsive gameplay just like the warranty. Check it out below.
Alright, so let's start with the design, and it still features rounded corners like the Pixel 3, but I'm not really a fan of the curved edges on the display. It looks more aggressive compared to the Pixel 3. The frame now comes in this matte black finish, and I absolutely love it. This phone comes in 3 different colors, clearly white, oh so orange. Man, Google and their naming strategy. And finally, there's just black. Interestingly enough, the white and orange variants have a matte texture at the back, but they did exclude that particular texture on the black model that I have with the Pixel 4 XL. As you can see, it's completely glossy. It's an absolute fingerprint magnet. I don't even know why Google decided to eliminate that texture. I mean, I would love an all matte black phone, but this is just like, why? I'm really glad that they didn't implement curved screens around the edges because just like the Pixel 3, the Pixel 4 is easier to hold in the hand. The XL model might be too big for people with smaller hands, and for size comparison, it's almost similar to the OnePlus 7T, but it's certainly smaller than the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. The Pixel 4 is basically the same size as the Pixel 3. They haven't really changed the dimensions of these phones, which is really nice. The display is probably one of the biggest improvements over the Pixel 3. It now features a 90Hz refresh rate. In fact, this might be one of the first phones to hit store shelves, so you can physically get to experience 90Hz in real time and sort of get to see what the smoothness is when you're navigating through the UI, and I think that's certainly a welcoming change to the Pixel 4. The screen size on the Pixel 4 has increased slightly from 5.5 to 5.7 inches, but it still maintains the same form factor as I mentioned earlier. They did this by extending the display all the way to the bottom, but the trade-off is that you don't get the front-facing speaker setup like the Pixel 3. But don't worry, the earpiece and the bottom-facing speakers are configured in stereo mode, and they sound amazing. In fact, they sound a lot better than the Pixel 3, in my opinion, because there's a little bit more bass, and honestly, when I'm listening to music or just casually watching content, I was really impressed with the sound quality coming out of the Pixel 4. Now, I can't forget to talk about this forehead bezel. Some of you might downright hate this design, but to be honest, it has grown on me. Sure, you lose symmetry, but Google had to take this approach in order to implement their radar solely motion sensor and the front-facing camera. Speaking of which, they decided to remove the secondary ultra-wide-angle camera on the Pixel 4, like what's found on the Pixel 3, and I'm actually really pissed about that because they clearly had the room for it, and honestly, the differences in that wider field of view is slightly noticeable, and I'm not really sure why Google decided to eliminate one of my favorite features of this device. In fact, a lot of people really enjoyed having that wide-angle selfie camera on the Pixel 3. This is like a step backwards, and I mean, let me know what you guys think. Are you disappointed by this removal? I'm curious to know your thoughts about that in the comments. All right, so let's talk about the motion radar sensor implemented on the Pixel 4. Now, essentially, it allows the user to control certain aspects of the phone without having to touch the device. So for instance, you can simply wave your hand to skip tracks, silence phone calls, snooze alarms. You can't necessarily control volume or answer phone calls. Now, having just spent a couple of days with the Pixel 4, the motion gesture is still a hit or miss. In fact, I feel like a lot of developers have to take advantage of the radar sensor to start implementing gestures for their respective apps. So perhaps over time, we'll start to see updates roll out so that we can start to finally take advantage of this sensor, because it is an interesting, feature to add to a phone. In fact, we did see this with LG's implementation on their device not too long ago. So I hope to see Google improvise on that later on. What's really frustrating is that Google is not selling the Pixel 4 and the 4 XL in India, which honestly doesn't make any sense to me. In fact, for the 10% of our audience watching from India, I don't really know what to say because I feel like this is certainly a missed opportunity. You might also notice that the Pixel 4 doesn't have any physical biometric authentication on the device like a fingerprint sensor, and that's because they completely ditched that for an advanced encrypted face unlock via the Titan M chip. So far, my experience with it has been great. In fact, it's very fast, and even though that I'm wearing glasses, it works all the time, which is cool. It also works when I'm in bed, so under low light situations, it seems to work just fine. But I'm actually curious to see how reliable this particular verification is, just because, you know, when I'm trying to make a payment or under unexpected situations, how is it going to hold up? I'm definitely planning on investigating this a little bit further on, so definitely stay tuned for that. But for now, it's pretty cool. Taking a look at the specs of the Pixel 4, it's really not that great, especially for the price. It's very underwhelming. So you get a Snapdragon 855, not the 855 Plus, 6 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, and it's not expandable, and you can only max it out to 120 gigabytes. Really, the only difference between the Pixel 3 and the 4 is the updated SoC and 2 extra gigs of RAM. The storage is not even UFS 3.0 like what's found on OnePlus devices. Battery is smaller on the Pixel 4, so we're looking at 28 mAh versus 2900 on the Pixel 3. So far, battery life has not been that great on the Pixel 4, and I have verified that with some of my other friends in the tech community. In fact, screen on time is very much similar on the Pixel 4 compared to the Pixel 3, so it's not something, you know, significant. But if you are looking for better battery life, the only way to opt for is the Pixel 4 XL because it does come with a 3700 mAh battery, which is definitely a step up from the Pixel 3 XL. This phone still has the IP68 water resistant rating, wireless charging. Unfortunately, the charging solution is not faster compared to last year because it's still using the 18-watt charging protocol. And now on to the cameras. It's actually a questionable choice from Google in my opinion because it left a lot of people, including myself, scratching our heads just because of the configuration that they decided to go with. Here's why. The Pixel 3 came with a single 12.2 megapixel f1.8 sensor. The Pixel 4 comes with the exact same sensor with a lower f-stop and a 16 megapixel f2.4 telephoto lens. And that's it. You don't get an ultra-wide-angle camera on the Pixel 4, which is really disappointing. I was hoping for Google to include one on this device, but unfortunately we don't get it. I don't know what to say. I just don't. You see, Google is really banking on software improvements with the Pixel 4 because they've added features like super res zoom, improved portrait mode, astrophotography, improved white balancing algorithms, and live HDR+. All of these things that I really want to test out in the long-term review. But as you can see by these comparisons between the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 4, the pictures look really good, but it is expected given how good their computational photography is. I mean, there's a little bit more detail on the Pixel 4 versus the Pixel 3, and dynamic range is slightly improved. But what's really interesting is that the Pixel 3 produces images that are more contrasty compared to the Pixel 4. Having compared these samples side by side, I don't really notice a major difference between the two. Sure, the Pixel 4 is a little bit brighter compared to the Pixel 3, but I'm actually happy with the results coming out of the Pixel 3, and with a little bit of editing, I'm pretty sure I can get a really good result out of this camera. But I want to know your thoughts about these samples. What do you guys think about it? Let us know in the comments down below. All right, so this is the video test on the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 3. The dynamic range is actually slightly better on the Pixel 4 compared to the Pixel 3, as you can see. And the Pixel 3 tends to add a bit of contrast to the image, whereas the Pixel 4, it's trying its very best to retain that HDR goodness, which is great. Now, in terms of detail, I honestly can't tell a difference, but quite frankly, I mean, I really wish they had shot 4K at 60 frames per second because we could have done some really cool slow motion stuff with the new phone, but unfortunately that isn't the case because, man, for the price point, it's just video features are absolutely underwhelming on the Pixel 4. All right, so this is the front-facing camera test on the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 4. I'll be switching back and forth just so you can get a rough idea on what the audio quality is going to be like. Unfortunately, the dynamic range is pretty terrible on both these phones, but that's the thing. With video, Pixel phones, they just aren't as good as Samsung's Galaxy devices. But most importantly, what's even surprising is that the front-facing camera can only shoot 1080p video and not 4K, whereas the iPhone 11, which costs $100 less, can shoot 4K video using the front-facing camera. That's a complete disappointment. Now, Google has added a few refinements in the software department, but there are a few gimmicks added as well. So you can now choose live Pokemon wallpapers that react with your motion gestures, And I'll be honest with you, Mike really enjoyed playing around with this feature. But then again, just imagine yourself in a public space just trying to fiddle around with your phone, just trying to make different gestures. I think that's just going to look weird. Another really cool feature is live transcribing that records audio in real time, as well as transcribing that using the voice memo app. This is one of my favorite features of the Pixel 4. In fact, if you're a student, you can certainly take advantage of this particular feature when you're recording lectures, because you don't have to be connected to the internet for this to take full effect. It happens locally on the phone, and Google has some really smart organization tools as well, so that is pretty cool. Finally, Google Assistant gets a few refinements here and there as well. But if I'm being brutally honest, guys, I actually prefer Oxygen OS on OnePlus devices compared to the Pixel experience, because you get more customizable options on Oxygen OS versus the Google UI, just because you can get to change the accent colors on icons and do a lot more things with that. And I feel like OnePlus has definitely nailed it with giving you the stock Android experience, but also customization, whereas Google is just, it's plain, but there's nothing really interesting about this particular UI. Now, I did get the chance to ask some of my friends to see what they think about the Pixel 4 and the 4 XL. Let's hear what they have to say.
Eber, Mike, Dimitri, thank you guys so much for having me on, but I'm going to preface this video by saying I do like the Pixel 4. I think it's a good smartphone, but a good smartphone in 2019 for a flagship device is not hard to do, because every flagship device right now is a good smartphone. Camera, come on. Ultra wide, it should be there. I don't care if you think it's good or not. The competition is doing it. Apple is doing it. And if Apple's doing it, you should be doing it or trying to be doing it better. That should be on your device in 2019. $800 smartphone, but it's not living up to the flagship features. You're pricing it just above the iPhone 11 and above the OnePlus 7T. Two devices that I personally feel offer a lot more value than the Pixel 4. I think right now the only people who should buy this device are people who want the absolute best smartphone camera for stills. If you're doing video or anything else, there's better options out there. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Those are the features I like and dislike about the Pixel 4. Thank you, Hardware Canucks, for having me on. And Dimitri.
Hey Eber, so I've been using the Google Pixel 4 and Google Pixel 4 XL for a few days now, but I keep finding myself on the 4 XL. Now, normally I do like smaller phones, but the problem is the Google Pixel 4 has one of the smallest batteries on Android right now. It's 2800 milliamp hours, and it just keeps dying over and over again. I'm getting like 3 hours, 50 minutes or 4 hours of screen on time, which is very bad. I usually get 6.5 to 7 hours of screen on time on any given day on a regular Android phone. As far as new features go, you've pretty much got an enhanced camera and you've got Project Soli. Now in the camera, you've got the what you see is what you get viewfinder, which is really nice, but that uses a lot of power. Soli, which is this radar sensor that senses when you're picking up your phone, turns on the face unlock cameras, and then unlocks your phone, is really good and really fast, but it also uses a lot of power. There's Wi-Fi sensors, there's sensors that are using cellular data, and these all just kill your phone pretty much instantly. So for me, it's just really hard to recommend a Pixel 4, especially the small one, when it's just going to die after a couple hours of use.
So there you have it, Pixel 4 versus Pixel 3. And I hope you were able to take away the differences between these two devices. In fact, I'm curious to know your thoughts about the camera comparisons in the comments down below. I was really hoping for a lot more with the Pixel 4, especially since it costs $800 or starts at $800. I don't feel like Google has added that much to justify its price tag personally, but I think it's too early to come up with any conclusions, because I really want to spend a little bit more time with this phone to see what it can do, especially for that price. So certainly stay tuned for my long-term review. But until then, I'm Eber with Hardware Canucks. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out some relevant content over here, subscribe, and hit that notification button so that you don't miss out on a new video. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one.